Hi, I'm Christopher Grow, and we're continuing to do faith formation at home. You might want to go grab a Bible. You can pause the video while you go get it. So this week we're going to continue to talk about how to use the Bible. Last week we saw a little bit about the different things that went on in the Bible and kind of how it was organized. But now we got to figure out, how do we actually use this thing? So if we want to look up a passage and find something to look at and read, maybe we're in class and our teacher asks us to open to a certain page, how do we know how to get there? Well, first, let's start off with the table of contents. So you kind of got to flip through the first few pages of your Bible. If you go through the first couple, you'll eventually get to this page where it says index, where it says the books of the Bible. So right here on this page, it has all of the books of the Bible in order. So the first book you can see is Genesis. The second one is Exodus. The third is Leviticus. And then we keep going all the way down. So all of those books. So first we go through these books and then those books. And that's all of the Old Testament. You can see the Old Testament up there. And then we go down and then we've got the New Testament, which is in the second half. And we've got Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those are the four Gospels at the beginning of the New Testament. And the last book of the Bible is Revelation. So this shows us the order. But it also gives us which page number each of those books starts on. It also tells us how many chapters are in each book, and it tells us how we abbreviate each book. So if your teacher asks you to go to Genesis, but they just say GN, well, you got to look and say, okay, GN means Genesis, and Genesis is the first book of the Bible, and in this Bible, it starts on page 5. So if we want to go find Genesis, we can open up to the beginning of the Bible, or right there at the beginning, barely opened it, and up at the top, you can say, hey, I'm in the book of Genesis. But right now I'm on chapter 8. And the next page is on chapter 9. So if you can see, there's the chapter 8 starts right down here. Chapter 9 starts right up here. But maybe we want to get to the very beginning. So we go to Genesis. Oh, Genesis chapter 1. It's the very beginning of the Bible. Chapter 1 starts right there. You can see the words chapter and then the number 1. And then we got the story of creation. That's right there at the beginning of the Bible. Now there's a few different things going on here. You've got chapter 1, but then you've got another little number 1 right there. And then if you read, so in the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth, and then there's a little number 2. The earth was a formless wasteland, and darkness covered the abyss, while a mighty wind swept over the waters. And then there's a number 3. What are those little numbers? So we're in chapter 1, so this is all chapter 1 right here and all right there, all the way down here, till we get to chapter 2. So we've got all these different numbers. See, you can see number 30 and number 29 and 28. So all those little numbers are verses. So if I say go to Genesis chapter 1, there's chapter 1, find verse 1, then I find the verse number. That's that number 1 right there. Or if I say find Genesis chapter 1, verse 20. So that means I got to go through all those little numbers. I'm in chapter 1 to find verse 20 right there. There's the number 20. Let's say I show, for example, say I go to Genesis chapter 12, verse 1. So I got to keep flipping around. Oh, Genesis 13 and 14 right there. See, that's too far. I need to find Genesis. Oh, there's Genesis chapter 12. Chapter 12 starts right there. Verse 1 is right here. The Lord said to Abraham, go forth from the land of your kinsfolk and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. So that's how we use the Bible. But there's a bunch of books in here. So first, I think it's helpful to find this table of contents and a point to us where to go. And then we use the table of contents to find where the books are at and which order they're in. For example, let's say we want to find the 10 Commandments. We got to go to Exodus chapter 20. Well, I know Exodus is the second book of the Bible. So I start in Genesis, that's the first book, and I got to keep flipping until I find Exodus. Nope, still Genesis. Oh yeah, there's Exodus. But for the 10 Commandments, we got to find Exodus chapter 20. I'm going to keep flipping my pages until I get to Exodus chapter 20. There's 18, and there's 20. Okay. See, it says chapter 20, and it even tells me right there, the 10 Commandments. And the Lord delivered all these commandments. And then you can read all the 10 Commandments right there in chapter 20. Or say I want to read birth of Jesus. I know that's in the New Testament, and we can read it in Matthew. So the Magi, the three kings, the three wise men, they come to visit Jesus in the first chapter of Matthew. Maybe it's the second chapter. We'll find out. So we got to keep flipping, because I know Matthew is the first gospel. Hey, there's Mark. So the four gospels are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Well, maybe I'm going to find Matthew before Mark. Well, I keep flipping backwards, and then there's Matthew, but I got to go to the beginning when Jesus was a baby. So keep going, keep going. Oh, Matthew chapter 1. Nope, there's no Magi in there. There we go. Matthew chapter 2, the visit of the Magi. Table of contents at the beginning. And so, say for example, you wanted to find the Gospel of John, but you didn't know where it was at. So you go to this table of contents, and you go into the New Testament. You know, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the first four books of the New Testament. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Well, John starts on page 1135. Okay? So, up here in the top corner, we got all these little numbers right there. So I'm going to keep going, 1135. Almost there. And then we'll be able to get to the Gospel of John. Oh, there's John. So now you guys can practice that you know how to do it. I'm going to put up a couple of Bible verses, and maybe you can see if you can find them. Good luck, everybody. Grace, peace.